This episode is brought to you by VPP Simplified. Now you can get element by element tracking and guidance for your VPP journey. Every aspect of the VPP requirements in one easy-to-use interactive spreadsheet. Achieving VPP star status can be tough, but understanding what it takes to get there can be simplified. This VPP Gap tool will help you do that. Go to vppsimplified.com for more information.
Welcome to the Safety Pro Podcast, where we help you manage workplace safety one episode at a time. And now, your very own Safety Pro, Blaine J. Hoffman.
Welcome to another episode of the Safety Pro Podcast. In this episode, we're going to talk about OSHA's recent reversal on, or seemingly reversal, on their opinion of workplace incentives related to, or as they are tied to, workplace injuries and illnesses. So it can get quite complicated. A lot of folks over the years have asked me, hey, should we even be considering tying bonuses and cash to how many recordables our site has? And, we'll go through some of what OSHA says at a minimum, what their opinion of those programs are. And then, does it even make sense to structure some programs certain ways? We'll get into some of that. And I hope to leave you at the end of the episode with a clear path forward on how you can design and, devise an incentive program that actually helps support your overall goal of reducing the causes of workplace injuries and illnesses, increasing employee involvement, and showing management commitment to these programs, at the same time rewarding where good work is done and not have it work against you. So that's the goal of this episode. Again, I hope at the end we get there, and I'm going to rely on your feedback to tell me, if we were successful. Before we jump into the topic, I want to talk a little bit about our partners in safety. whosonlocation.com. Go to whosonlocation.com to get some information about their incredible web-based service. This service will help you manage visitors at your sites, even at a single office location or building, job sites, multiple manufacturing facilities across the world. You can do complete visitor management, contractor management, employee time, employees that are checking in and out, and all of this can also help support another one of their great apps that I love, which is the emergency management piece of their service. So you can initiate an evacuation at one building, multiple buildings, again, from anywhere in the world, and you could see who's on location at that time and actually check them in to make sure that they're safe and communicate with them via text or messaging from the actual web app itself. So again, go to whosonlocation.com to get more information. As a matter of fact, you can sign up for a 30-day free trial, no credit card required. Should you decide to stay with the service, everything you set up during the trial ports over to your full service, so you don't lose any data, no rework needed there. So it's really totally risk-free. Go give it a try and make sure you let them know that we sent you. whosonlocation.com. Another great partner in safety, I love these folks, the official floor marking floor sign company of the Safety Pro Podcast, none other than Mighty Line Floor Tape. Look, go to mightylinetape.com/podcast. Find out what makes their floor tape the best in the industry. Just some of the information that I can share with you right now is, one, it's their floor tape. It's 7 times thicker than the average floor tape. I mean, that's incredible. So they're off to a good start just with that alone. 2, beveled edge. The beveled edge makes it incredibly durable for forklift, scissor lift, and cart use in your, warehouse, factory floor. It doesn't matter. It's incredibly durable. It's built that way. 3, the peel and stick adhesive makes it easy to apply and easy to remove with very little residue behind, not like the competitors. They've got some good side-by-side photos on their website, so go noodle around on the site and see for yourself, but it's incredible stuff. And then they have other things that you can add to the tape, other technology like centerline glow tape. They have freezer floor tape for that severe temperatures. I mean, they've really got this locked down. Stop painting your floors. Don't get the cheap roll of duct tape. Just get the tape that's designed to take the beating, to withstand the harsh environments in the industrial settings, and that's Mighty Line Floor Tape. While you're there, you can check out past episodes of the Safety Pro Podcast, incredible sponsors of the podcast, but it goes beyond that. They're true partners in safety. They understand and they know that you have safety in mind, and they do too. And that's how they design their products. So go to mightylinetape.com/podcast. Let them know we sent you. Get a free sample of the floor tape sent right to you. Try it for yourself. You won't be disappointed. Again, mightylinetape.com/podcast. Okay, so let's get into the changes that OSHA made to their policy on incentives and including drug testing. There's a big sweeping change that they made that includes incentives and drug testing. Let me start at the beginning. OSHA, they have changed their course in its view of employers' post-incident drug testing programs and injury rate-based incentive programs. In a memorandum to regional administrators and state designees published in October, so I think it was around October 10th or 11th, the agency says that most of these types of programs, in fact, do not run afoul of the anti-retaliation provisions of the injury and illness record-keeping regulations. Those are the 1904, 29 CFR 1904 regulations. This is a huge shift, big shift in policy guidance from, what was published when the agency issued the final rule in May of 2016 that required employers to electronically submit injury and illness records. Now, part of that rulemaking, kind of nested in there, OSHA added a provision that employers not have any barriers for employees to report injuries or illnesses. And that rule also said employers could not discriminate or punish employees for being injured. Now, while the rule itself didn't address drug testing or incentive programs, policy guidance published along with that rule indicated that most post-incident drug testing programs would be in violation. And the same thing was said also about incentive programs that were tied to injury rates, and that's the key there. But now, OSHA says many employers who implement safety incentive programs and or conduct post-incident drug testing, they do so to promote workplace safety and health. In addition, the agency says evidence that the employer consistently enforces legitimate work rules, whether or not, an injury is reported. So it doesn't matter if an injury or an illness occurred. If you consistently enforce legitimate work rules, that would demonstrate that the employer is serious about creating a culture of safety and not just the appearance of reducing rates. Thus, action taken under a safety incentive program or post-incident drug testing policy would only violate 1904.35, the section talking about discrimination, if the employer took the action to penalize an employee for reporting a workplace injury or illness rather than for the legitimate purpose of promoting workplace safety and health. It's going to get a little weird here, okay? It's almost entirely left up to interpretation, who interprets the purpose and intent of the incentive program. I'll talk a little more about that here going forward. In the new policy, OSHA says that incentive programs can be an important tool to promote workplace safety and health. One type of incentive program rewards workers for reporting near misses or hazards and encourages involvement in a safety and health management system. In a direct quote, here's what the agency says, quote, "Positive action taken under this type of program is always permissible under the 1904 standards." Now, OSHA describes another type of incentive program that is rate-based and focuses on reducing the number of reported injuries and illnesses. These programs typically reward employees with a prize or some sort of cash bonus at the end of an injury-free month or quarter, or evaluate managers based on their department's lack of injuries. The agency says these rate-based incentive programs are also permissible under the record-keeping standard, quote, "as long as they are not implemented in a manner that discourages reporting." Well, if you tell the workforce, if you report a workplace injury, everybody in your department is going to lose, $500 at the end of the quarter, how does that not motivate somebody to not report even minor injuries? So that's the question we got to wrestle with right there. So if an employer takes a negative action against an employee under a rate-based incentive program, such as withholding a prize or a bonus because of a reported injury, OSHA would not cite the employer under the 1904 standards as long as the employer has implemented adequate precautions to ensure that the employees feel safe or free to report an injury or illness to begin with. So we'll get into some things structurally how you can do this and still not run afoul of 1904 or put yourself at risk of interpretation of that violation. So what does OSHA mean when they say adequate precautions are in place? Well, they say that even a statement that employees are encouraged to report and will not face retaliation for reporting may not by itself be adequate to ensure that employees actually feel free to report, particularly when the consequences for reporting will be a lost opportunity to receive a substantial award. So keep that in mind. However, an employer could avoid any inadvertent deterrent effects for a rate-based incentive program by taking positive steps to control or create a workplace culture that emphasizes safety, not just rates. For example, the agency says that any inadvertent deterrent effect of a rate-based incentive program on employee reporting would likely be counterbalanced if the employer also implements elements of a program such as an incentive program that rewards employees for identifying unsafe conditions in the workplace, before injuries occur, or a training program for all employees to reinforce reporting rights and responsibilities and emphasizes the employer's non-retaliation policy, and a mechanism for accurately evaluating employees' willingness to report injuries and illnesses, throughout the course of their employment. So little things like that you can do. I've got some other tips for you, but those are just some examples from OSHA that they provided. In addition, OSHA says that most instances of workplace drug testing are permissible under the 1904 standard. Examples of permissible drug tests include random drug testing unrelated to the reporting of a work-related injury or illness, or like reasonable suspicion. And then we get into some, workers' comp or even some HR laws, getting into some of that territory. So always consult with your company attorneys and HR professionals. But those are all examples of what OSHA says are permissible. Another one is drug testing under a state workers' compensation law. They have included that one. Drug testing under other federal laws, such as U.S. Department of Transportation rules, FAA rules are examples of those. And drug testing to evaluate the root cause of a workplace incident that harmed or could have harmed employees. So near misses. You can implement a drug testing policy for near misses. If the employer chooses to use drug testing to investigate the incident, the employer should test all employees whose conduct could have contributed to the incident, not just the employee who reported the injuries. This kind of helps shield you from the discrimination aspect of the whole point of them issuing this policy, right? Now, let's take a moment to talk a little bit about structure of an incentive program. A couple of rules of thumb apply here. One, cash isn't always the best option. As a matter of fact, I've often advocated against cash as an incentive program. Don't get me wrong, I love cash. Everybody loves cash. Cash is king, right? But it just from a financial standpoint, it takes, the studies range, on this, but there is a pretty good spread, and I've settled on sort of a 7-to-1 rule. It takes 7 actual dollars to get the same motivational effect as $1 in a non-cash reward. For example, a t-shirt, a lunch, a jacket, for meeting certain milestones. Those things seem to be longer lasting. You can see them, the reward over time. Every time somebody wears the shirt or the jacket, or people remember it. And that's where I get this, right? There was a study done of, it was a couple of thousand employees that got a cash reward, and then a couple of thousand employees that got non-cash rewards. They surveyed them. I think it was like 80%, up to 80% of those that got the cash reward could not remember what they used the money for, right? This is like a year later or two, where it was quite the opposite with the non-cash reward recipients. It was like almost 90% could remember exactly what the reward was and what they did to get it. It was a weekend out with their wife. There was like a movie and dinner night that they won. There's jackets, lunch boxes, T-shirts, things like that, tangible things that stuck with them. So that's where I kind of get this rule. Sometimes cash isn't always the answer. You can stretch your dollar a lot further with some non-cash rewards that are creative. The other thing you have to remember is, give people choices. Give them a choice of what they would like to, how they would like to be rewarded. Cash being off the table, but give them a choice. It personalizes it. Make sure you check your culture. Make sure you look at the culture that you're dealing with. And, some folks don't like public, acknowledgments. They're humble. So if you have a newsletter, if you do quarterly town halls, those are all opportunities where you can tie in your incentive program to those other, cultural aspects that are already in place that'll be complemented quite readily. So look at all of those things. I don't like passive programs. I'm just going to be upfront and honest with you. I've told clients for years. I've managed programs like this myself. Passive programs, basically, if you can go this quarter without a recordable, you will get, this other thing. So if you can do X, you can get Y. And it's a delayed reward. You have to wait to the end of the quarter to get it. And then once somebody has the recordable and everybody on that department, loses the incentive, you've lost the motivational effect of the program altogether. I'm not saying people are just going to start taking off their PPE and, swinging from the rafters willy-nilly because we're not going to get our bonus. But, if the whole point of setting up an incentive program is to incentivize a specific behavior or deter a specific behavior, then you've lost all of the mojo in the program as soon as somebody has a workplace injury, and it may not even been through any fault of their own. How are you going to say this whole team has now all of a sudden lost their incentive for this quarter because Joe or Jane got an OSHA recordable for doing a job that was poorly designed, has no training or support, and operating equipment that we're not even willing to maintain? Okay, do you see where I'm going with this? This doesn't exist everywhere, but look, if you can take an honest, deep look, introspective look at all of your processes, from quality to production to maintenance to safety and safety training and to leadership, the type of leadership we drive, that, what message do we send? And then you're going to, withhold an incentive from an employee who's trying to work within a system that may be flawed, broken. Look, forget what OSHA says, okay? It's good to know because it's like sort of the basement. That is the basement floor of how low you can go and not run afoul of OSHA. But we're talking about your people here. We need to be better than that. So take a good look at your incentive program. Do you have a passive incentive program? Do you drive the wrong behavior? This is another one I have always used. An incentive program, first of all, incentives are always supposed to be temporary, right? You're supposed to be driving start behavior, not stop behavior. Here's what I mean by that. Start behavior is, let's say you introduced something new. Maybe you didn't have glove policy before, but because you had a rash of lacerations, you've identified a trend, and one of the solutions is, we're going to have to go with cut-resistant gloves whenever we're handling certain materials. Well, this is going to be new for our population. It's going to take them a while because we're all humans, right? It's going to take us a while to develop that culture, to remind each other to put those on before we start dropping a hammer on folks. You want to sort of slow walk it, get folks used to it, and that's where you can use an incentive, some reward and recognition, praise, things like this, these non-cash sort of reinforcers that point out to the start behavior we want people to start exhibiting, right? Stop behavior, that's the opposite. If you have an incentive program that says, we're going to incentivize you for every day you wear your safety glasses, well, if you've already established that, then you shouldn't be reinforcing it. You have something else that deters them from taking off their safety glasses, and that's called a policy. That's called a condition of employment. That's also called culturally a permission to work value, meaning, you have to bring that value with you to even be able to work here. That's sort of like not stealing. We're going to pay you for not stealing our raw material, from us. That's you're going down the wrong path. That's why I also don't like attendance bonuses. Really all you're doing is we call those come to work sick bonuses, by the way. Look, life happens. How are you going to, on one hand, structure your benefits program, health insurance, life insurance, dental, vision, paid time off, to be competitive in the industry to attract the best people, and then turn around, right? And that all costs money, by the way, because you have to plan your production planning and everything. You're basically saying, we're going to lose this many production days out of people because you have to figure they're going to take advantage of all of their vacation time and stuff. So you're scheduling your business and forecasting it based on people taking the days off that they're allowed, that you've offered to them as a part of the employment package, right? You've structured your business that way. So there's a cost associated with some of these benefits and securing some of these benefits and paying them out. Then you're going to turn around and you're going to throw more money on top of them to bribe them to stay, to not take advantage of the benefit that probably was a deciding factor, not the deciding factor, but a deciding factor to get them to work for you. So it's sort of, you're undoing something that you've already done. I don't know. It doesn't make sense. I hope I'm being clear with this, but I don't like attendance bonuses. As soon as your child is sick and you have to stay home, you've lost that attendance bonus. So you know what's going to happen. The person says, well, it's on now. I'm going to take the rest of my paid time off for the rest of the quarter or the year so I don't lose it. You've lost all the incentive. And look, life happens. Instead, we should be looking at productivity while you're here. If we offer you that benefit and you take advantage of it, you shouldn't lose some other benefit because of that. I don't get it. It's just silly. It's just counterintuitive to me. There's better things we can be doing with our time and energy as a business and as a leadership position. Look, if we have all the people we need to run our business, and we forecasted our business with the benefits package we have, and we've discovered we're not going to be able to make as much as we need to make with that. So now we're going to bribe people not to take advantage of the benefits that they have, but that just increases cost. And a certain amount of them are going to take the time off anyway, so now you're still losing the production time. And then the folks that normally would never take any time off, that would always have had good attendance, you're now just paying more for that productivity than you would have. Because think about it. People that never miss work are going to never miss work regardless of having an attendance bonus. Maybe you get a handful of people, but statistically, you're throwing money at people that would have already taken advantage of the time on the job. So, there are studies on it. I'll leave it up to you to look up. I'm just sort of speaking from the, firing from the hip here extemporaneously. That's been my experience. That's my opinion. Hey, tell me what you think. What safety incentive programs really, really work, and how are they structured? And, some of the psychology behind it. Share that with me. If you don't mind, I'd like to share that with other listeners. I can put it up on the website and share how we can do those. I'm fascinated by incentive programs and reward and recognition programs. They are very, very effective when set up correctly. OSHA does have some criticisms of certain programs. The guidance that they've offered here is proof of that, but we can do better in the industry. So take a deep look at your culture, your people, give them the choice, have them participate in these incentive programs, and make sure you're incentivizing the right thing, and that you're always changing the incentives to adapt and grow with your culture. Okay? Hey, quick episode. I wanted to get this topic out there. I hope I gave you something to think about. And if you have any questions or suggestions or examples, again, shoot me a message. info@thesafetypropodcast.com. I'd love to hear from you all. And until the next Safety Pro Podcast episode, as always, be safe.